everyone, this is a what if video. In my recent videos, I have reviewed Queen Jane Seymour in the show The Tudors, but I've also discussed the myth around her, the false ideas I think we have of her. And it's very hard because obviously we have little records of her, though there's a very interesting academic book that is coming out on her, I hope very soon, at least in the next year or two, by Dr. Elizabeth Norton. So that would be one to look at, and I'll probably do a review on this. But that's not the point of this video. But I just making all these videos made me think, and I'm sure it made you think as well. What if Queen Jane Seymour had lived longer? And so let's dive into that type of rewriting history, writing fiction, really. Well, first of all, I think we have to kind of categorize in the changes that would have happened. So let's discuss about what I think would have happened with Henry, what type of mother I think she would have become, what type of stepmother she would have become, and also what type of queen overall, like the type of queen and personality, what I think would have kind of come through. And obviously here it's pure speculation, it's only my point of view. You can completely disagree with me, but that's my video on what if Queen Jane Seymour had lived longer. So first of all, I think that by giving, obviously, the son to Henry VIII, her relationship with Henry would have become a very stable one. And not because Henry would have been more in love with her than with anyone else, but because she finally gave him what he wanted, right? What he had wanted for decades. So, in a way, I still believe that he can't love, because I believe he's a narcissist, I believe he's a monster, but it would have been very close to it because, he would have respected her. There would be that kind of bond where he would have given her everything she wanted, and he would have been extremely pleased with her, but pleased to a level where she would have been, in his eyes, like a bit like his mother. I think it's very important to realize as well the closeness between Henry VIII and Elizabeth of York. And that's going to be part of another video that I want to make, and I'm making about the rise and fall of the Tudors. I think you can't really understand Henry VIII without understanding his education. But here, the type of wife that she would have become, the type of couples that Henry VIII and Jane Seymour would have become, I really think would have been this type of a strong partnership like Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. And obviously, you can imagine that she would not have stopped at one kid. So that's where I moved to, what type of mother she would have been. Well, I think she would have. I think it's a hard one to know, because I think I have conflicted ideas about this. Because obviously we know that queens they have to fulfill their role, and it's actually really rare when a queen is very close to their sons. And bear with me, honestly, we've seen throughout history, it's always very complex, because they in a way they're not allowed to just be mothers. They are queens. They have to fulfill their duties, which means they have to keep getting pregnant. So in that way, the kids are usually taken away from them to wet nurses. So they're not this bond of closeness. And I'm not saying breastfeeding is the only bond of closeness. I'm saying the babies and the young kids are taken away, and they put in households where they are educated by someone else. The wet nurses are here for them. So there is this kind of distance between the queens and their children. And there's something, when you really look at the sources for all the women, such as Catherine de Medici, she fought so much against it, so much, but she didn't really win. Anne Boleyn fought really hard against it as well. She wanted to be very close to Elizabeth, and she did. Catherine of Aragon as well is someone who was really... It was really important for her to be close to Princess Mary. And you can look at different types of mothers and different types of queens, but it doesn't always work. And it's what I say, if you look at Mary de Medici in the 17th century, unfortunately, because of that, probably she didn't bond really closely with her children. And it creates that type of tension sometimes. You have a different or difficult or complex, let's say complex relationships as well, when you look at even in the past in medieval history with Eleanor of Aquitaine, or and her children, and when you look at Isabel of France, the She-Wolf of France, with the future Edward III. Like, it's always very complex, and it is not very smooth. So I think that Queen Jane Seymour would have tried to be close to her son, but I think he would have been taken away to wet nurses, and she would have had to fulfill her duty to continue to have children. And here, like, even the daughter would have been fine, because then you can create alliances, or maybe she would have had other sons and had a spare to the throne, which would have obviously very much pleased Henry VIII, because he was himself just a spare, right? Like, so very interesting here in terms of motherhood. I think her queenly duties would have taken over that part of her. That's my personal opinion. I also think that because she loved Catherine of Aragon so much before her, and she saw the close relationship with Mary, Princess Mary, I think she would have tried to recreate this. So I think that's where also it's interesting. But now, what type of stepmother she would have been? I think with Princess Mary, nothing would have really changed. She would still have wanted her back at court, but I think she would have made very sure that she knew, like, part of the family, yes, daughter of the king, yes, Princess Mary, yes, but not her Mary, not her daughter, not her. So, like, her children would have, and in many ways, all her love for Edward, I think if she had lived longer, she would have had more than one child. So, like, I think her motherly love would have been towards them. No, I don't think she would have been very nice to Princess Elizabeth. I mean, not as nice as she was to Princess Mary. Mostly also because Princess Mary is much older. Because Princess Mary is a teenager. Like, you know, it's a different type of relationship anyway. I think she would have reinstated fully Elizabeth at court. I think she would have shown kindness, but just not that closeness that she would have pursued with Princess Mary. And probably, again, because of her own relationship with Anne Boleyn and the fact that these two women didn't really like each other. We don't have, like, records of them, like, being very close. Well, we do have records of Jane Seymour very loyal, being very loyal to Catherine of Aragon. So here, I think that would have played quite an important role in the ways in which she would have treated Elizabeth. But at the same time, I think she would have also tried to reinstate, because Elizabeth would have been no threat at all. Especially if you know, in our vision of what if would have happened, like, you know, we say that Jane would have had also daughters, so that she would have probably, like, been kind of a nice stepmother, but also a bit distant. But I think she would have had an interest as well in marrying Princess Mary and Princess Elizabeth, in a way that would not have overshadowed her daughters' alliances and marriages, but also, like, secure England itself and the nobility. And that's why it makes me think that, you know, it is a very interesting ways of, like, how she would have played a role in the lives of her stepdaughters. Now, in terms of what type of queen I think she would have become, I think she would have, once she was secure with a son, healthy boy like Edward, and I think then she would have given all their healthy children, she would have been a very much more forward queen. She would have played a more important political role. I think she would have been, you know, wanted to become like a real partner to Henry VIII. Like, as I said, like, I think we could have compared Henry VIII and Jane Seymour to Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. But even before, you know, all these queens that were, like, very close to their husband, like Philippa of Hainaut with Edward III, even Isabella of France with Edward II at first, the first part of the reign that is where she's completely loyal and actually helping her husband. So I think that she would have become, like, a more important political player. She would have had a stronger voice. I think he would have listened, like Henry VIII would have listened to her more. And now, do I think that then, obviously, what would have happened to Cromwell? Cromwell fell because of the marriage with Anne of Cleves. No, Cromwell fell because of his relation to power. And here, what would have been very interesting is that I think that Jane Seymour and her brother would have wanted more and more power. So down the line, I think that it would not have changed Cromwell's downfall. It would just have taken place maybe a bit later on, in new circumstances. But I think at the end, like, nobles really didn't really like the fact that there was such a lowborn rising to power, rising to court. So I think down the line, even, you know, it would have been it would not have changed much for Cromwell. It might have delayed his downfall, but I think that when you look at all his enemies, and also when you look at Henry VIII himself, it would not have changed that Henry VIII was someone who was very much in charge, and who didn't like when someone pretended to be in charge instead of him. So overall, I think Jane would have given more children to Henry VIII. I think she would have been quite a good stepmother to Mary and Elizabeth, but keeping some distance, more distance with Elizabeth. I think she would have tried to, however, marry them in a good way, but in a way that would have supported also her family's interest. So again, created alliance and making sure that the Seymour faction was growing. She would have been, though, like, very much more in control of her brothers than her brothers in control of her, because now she was mother of a future king. And so, like, that, you know, the kind of power vacuum she left when she died would not have happened for her brothers. So that would have been very interesting. And I think as well that she would have become a much more resolved queen, with a bigger voice, greater agency. Just not this kind of, like, very, you know, quiet, humble, like all the image we have of Jane Seymour. I think she would have just been more complex, just, you know, overall more politically involved as well. Let me know in the comments what you think would have happened if Jane Seymour had lived longer. Another thing I want to say is that if she had lived as well when survived Henry and see her son, you know, become king, I think she would have played a very important role as an advisor to Edward VI. So again, I think would have a complete different image of her, because I believe that she was intelligent. I believe that she would have been politically astute, but also power hungry, because at the end of the day, the fact that she gave birth to a son gave her very strong power in itself, because she became mother of a king or future king. So that's really, in my mind, it would have been a total different Jane in terms of representations and how we talk and how we see her now. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to let me know what you think. Thank you, guys. Bye.